Fall camp is fully underway. We've got 1 week in, and with that, you guys have tons of questions. We're going to do something we generally don't do on the Michigan Mailbag. And we're going to answer all of them. We're going to do it right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy, what day is it? Wednesday? Happy Wednesday. We're back in doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. We do thank you, all of you out there, for making us your first listen. Thank you, all of the everydayers who check us out every single day. We've got our audio problem tentatively solved by going in camera with a lav mic. Hopefully it's not like it was when we did it in Florida, but well, here we go. So, segment one, typical deal. We're going to do the do the leaders and best, then the victors, valiant in segment two. Segment three is going to be an extra long blue crew. We're going to get to all of them, so that's the plan. Let's start with our leaders and best, starting with James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Outside of the quarterback battle being a legit competition, was there anything else you took away from Media Day that you didn't necessarily believe? I don't think so. Like, you're gonna kind of get this throughout a little bit, this show, especially when there are some questions. But this is kind of one of the. I mean, this might be the weirdest Michigan fall camp that I can recall, because there are some battles, right? And like, you've got the offensive line, you've got. Technically running back, but the two guys are going to be. But like to me, for the most part, there just aren't like a ton of questions. So there aren't a lot of things that can be said that make you just kind of question it. Now, maybe some of the faith in some of the freshmen, I'm skeptical, but I'm coming along based off of some of the things I've heard from some colleagues. So, when people talk about Andrew Babalola, like he's really got a chance, like that type of discussion. I believe that now, whereas maybe I wouldn't have before. But the quarterback one is the only one that I'm kind of like, I don't buy that it's a real competition. That's just it. Everything else is just kind of, especially because like with Sharon, it was just a lot of, there were apparently a lot, and this is unsurprising, a lot of Ohio State guys there asking all those types of questions that were being asked, right? So there wasn't like a lot of like, the typical Michigan media people that were really getting in what, the types of questions that we would ask. They were there. The full complement of us weren't there. I think that really, to me, the big thing is the quarterback one. Josh Barr at Jadicke. Prediction about who the coaches aren't talking about much at the start of camp that will be a name we know at the end of camp. I think you can say, even though I've asked about him and now he's kind of getting hyped, TJ Metcalf. I think he's someone that people are going to be talking about the same way people were talking about Jayshon Barham going in. Even Jayshon Barham, I think, is going to get talked about a lot. But here's the thing: is like, again, kind of the same thing, like with how the weirdness of this camp. There's a lot of known commodities, and like we know like what the potential is for a lot of these guys, and we know what the expectations are. And it's just kind of like one of those things we just have to see it, right? Like I think. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of like huge names. And then again, you never know, because there's always some hype beast that comes from out of nowhere, right? Like you had Jamar Browder in spring ball. So it's kind of hard to tell who's going to be that person. Andrew Marsh would be, I have a feeling Andrew Marsh is going to kind of get the Jamar Browder treatment. And let's see, is there anyone else that I feel? I wouldn't be surprised if like David Poly or someone like that. Make that extra deep rotation. But other than that, I think we kind of know at this point. We have a pretty good idea of who's going to be who. My brother in metal, Michael Wolf at MWolf21, lots of talk about Bryce going up against the Venables defense. He'll be seeing a Wink defense all camp. Don't you think between Sharon and Wink, they'd have him well prepared? Yes, I do. I still question Oklahoma's defensive prowess, even with the Venables scheme. I think they've got better players than what you saw in the Big 12, but I still think you're still kind of rife with Big 12 type defensive players, right? And it's not to say the Big 12 had bad defensive players, but before Venables came there, I mean, they got 5 stars like Caleb Kelly and others throughout the years, and it just kind of never really took that big step. But here's the thing. I don't think it matters as much, right? Like, I think what matters more, because Bryce is going to have to make good decisions. That's the type of game where if I'm Michigan, you see if you can run the ball early, and if you can run as much as possible and not make it so Bryce doesn't have to win that game for you, then you do it. I'm sure, though, that's going to be Venables' thing, is going to be make Bryce win it. So it's going to be an interesting battle. All right, we got 2 honorary because we didn't get the full complement of the Victor's Valiant. So 2 honorary, and no, I didn't pull them from from Leaders and Best here. I didn't pull them from Victor's Valiant. But Steve Dace asks, we cannot possibly play a true freshman quarterback and left tackle in primetime on the road in just the second game of the season against Oklahoma, coached by one of the best defensive minds in the business, can we? I don't think they will, but it's a possibility. It's absolutely a possibility. Now, I don't yet know enough about Oklahoma's personnel. Okay, so I don't know. It's do they have a guy that's on the edge that you're just fearful of? I don't know. You probably know better than I do, Steve. But freshman quarterback, I'm going to say yes. Freshman left tackle, I'm going to say not yet. Doesn't mean you're not going to see him, but I still feel as much as Babalola is starting to, get some rave reviews, I still feel like Evan Link is, and, I think you agree with me with what you saw in the spring game, that he isn't as bad as advertised. And if he can build off of what he did in the final couple games of the season last year, then they'll be in a good spot. Because his big thing, for instance, was that you can do it in practice, but then you get into a game and you kind of start to deviate. There starts to be a lack of trust. And I just don't think that they're going to throw Babalola out there like that if they don't have to. Now, if he's just clearly heads and shoulders better, and and you can learn some from week 1, then okay, maybe. But I don't feel like that will happen, but it could. Absolutely could. Oklahoma's not as daunting as we try to act like they are too, right? They're coming off of a 6 and 7 season. And Canada Mike asks, is it true that Canada Mike is going to be on your podcast in August? If so, will he remain perfect in his live video predictions? It is true, because I will be invading Canada in a week's time. So we will have a weekend show next week at some point. So it is true. And will he remain perfect? I don't know. That's up to you. Don't say anything stupid. That's all I got. All right, we're going to continue on here. We're going to do so here in just a moment. But before we do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. The great thing about it is they help you figure out what kind of subscriptions you've been paying on that you maybe forgot about. I had this old Planet Fitness, and technically I haven't canceled it, but I found I've been paying for Planet Fitness that I signed up for when I moved to Fenton, and then actually never went to because I signed up to a different gym because I don't like Planet Fitness. So thank you to Monarch Money to helping me figure that out. Also, you find out how much money you're spending on different things, like how much I spend on DoorDash. And now I spend a heck of a lot less on DoorDash and a heck of a lot more on groceries. But nonetheless, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. All right, let's continue on here. I started leaning into a microphone that isn't there. It's pushed out of the way. The microphone's up here. So, all right, let's get to the Victor's Valiant. Chubbs, GB, I talk with Chubbs. What do you think about the people, Michigan State and Ohio State fans, who spend countless hours crying about cheating and making threads about the decision/hammer that's coming? Number one, if the shoe was on the other foot, I think the same thing would be happening here. Let's just be honest. I don't think our show would be spending that time But like if the shoe was on the other foot, Michigan fans would be doing the same thing. Let's just be true here. Maybe not as much, because I do think that Michigan State and Ohio State care more about Michigan than Michigan cares about the rivals, I think. But I think it's all a coping mechanism. Now, I don't know why Michigan State's doing it, because like Michigan beating Michigan State is not abnormal. They've had their runs, whether it was the bulk of the D'Antonio era, the first couple of years of Mel Tucker, like they've had their wins. Ohio State, I think it's way more coping mechanism, because they when they heard about the Connor stuff, and just kind of the point of I know people think it's crazy to call it a psyop and all of that stuff, but I still believe that's true, right? It wasn't everything wasn't presented all in one package. It was a drip, 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 drip. There's reasons why that happened the way it did, and you can kind of tell a coordinated media campaign when it happens. But that was kind of the point, was to try to destabilize things. And I think in a way, while that was happening, that made Ohio State fans feel better, right? We didn't actually lose the 2021 and 2022 games. They cheated. I think that's the whole thing, right? It's a coping mechanism. And then they still lost the next two. And, it puts them in cognitive dissonance, which is why they ignore a lot of things. There's a reason why you see some actually address the advanced scouting. And there's some that just call it for what it actually is. There's some who like to make it mountain to a molehill. And then you have some people that just still have no idea what the actual thing is. I still see people in the media, no less, who are saying things like Jim Harbaugh seemed to have no idea that Connor Stalions was standing next to Jesse Minter, and Jesse Minter's talking to him and stuff like that. It's again, that was allowed to happen. Jim Harbaugh never said, I didn't know. He never said, I don't know who Connor Stalions is. He does. He didn't say, I didn't know that Connor Stalions was stealing signs, because he did. Because that was his job. Because it's not illegal. So there's a lot of people that don't understand what happened, right? And then some people say, you act like what Connor did was so unbelievably egregious. No, you're allowed to have stolen signs. It's just the method in which he did it. It's not illegal for him to have video that tells him the signs according, and when I say the method that he did it, it's allegedly, again, having cell phone footage from his mom from a Purdue game is technically illegal in the eyes of the NCAA, at least the enforcement group. We'll find out later. So I think that's the big thing, is you see all of the coping that happens there. And if people just not coming to terms, or I think that there's probably a lot of people out there that understand it for being what it is, but they're not going to let it go because it's a rivalry. So there you go. I'm not the one at William Cawthor 9. Sharon and Dusty seem like player type coaches. Do you think it's better to have a fiery coach, a player's coach, or a mixture of both? I think a little bit of both, really. I think a player's coach, it just depends on the team you have, right? If do you have guys that you can trust, then a player's coach. Do guys that need fire lit up underneath of them and things like that, then maybe you need a little bit more of a fiery coach, right? There's been times that Jim Harbaugh in the earlier stages, 2015, he needed to be a little bit more fiery. 2016, he didn't need to be. He could be a little bit more of a player's coach, and so I think it kind of is a mixture of. Depends on the team you have. It's not like a through line that one or the other either. Why is it that people say that freshmen will have freshman struggles when they're athletes who have played 3, 4, 5 years and still have struggles? It is a rise in level. I don't think it's obvious that Bryce is going to have struggles. I think it's more obvious that wide receivers will. But with someone like Bryce, people didn't look at Jeremiah Smith starting and saying he's really going to have struggles. People didn't necessarily look at Trevor Lawrence that way. I think it all just depends. I think yet you can usually bank on it to some degree. Dylan Raiola had some struggles, obviously. And he was the number one quarterback last year. It's more likely than not, but I just don't think it's a hard and fast rule either. Let me just put it that way. Do you own a Michigan name jersey? And if so, who do you have? I do not. I own 0 jerseys of anybody. The last jersey I had was not, I've only had one Michigan jersey ever. I got it when I was in college. It was a number 10. So you can guess who that was. It was Jeremy Gallon, even though Jeremy Gallon wasn't on the team yet. It was Prescience. Great Bambino X at Colossus O'Cloud X. Who do you think can be or already is an unsung hero for this team? Coaches or players? The guy that doesn't get talked about enough but should. Based off of one thing, DJ Guy said that, asked who the loudest coach is that he can recall during practice thus far. He said Juan Castillo, Giovanni Elhadi, agreed. I think it could be him, especially if everything comes together, because you don't need to have the situation like you had in 2017 to 18. You had Tim Drevno, and then you hired Ed Warner as an analyst, right? And then they fire Tim Drevno, and Ed Warner gets promoted to analyst. So I don't think you necessarily need to have a situation anymore where that's going to be that case. And yes, Grant Newsome still overseeing everything, but whatever he might miss, having the guy, multi-decade experienced NFL caliber offensive line coach able to be there and coaching all the time, I think that very well could be. And same thing with Soup. And I know I get questioned later about those two guys. As far as players are concerned, actually, it's literally the next question, or 2 questions from here, actually. As far as players are concerned, I think Donaven McCulley could be that guy. If he really is that Nico Collins type, I think he absolutely could be that guy. Defensively, it's kind of less of one guy. It's everybody working together. But you can have a couple unsung heroes that really step up, or one of the 2 running backs, to put it that way. Perry Mitchell 08, what causes the everyone but Michigan will get better narrative, especially rally this season with a capable quarterback and offensive coordinator? I don't know. Someone asked this question later, so we'll get to him too. But someone asked, "Is it Michigan fatigue?" We'll give you credit when we get to that. But I think it's just kind of generally just what the narrative is always going to be on Michigan, right? Some schools are always just going to have that narrative. It's the reason why Penn State is, they're championship caliber Penn State. I liken it to, I remember sometime in the 2000s in the NFL, it was always Washington and Minnesota. They were spoken about as being championship caliber teams at time periods in which they didn't really show that. So it's just kind of you always have your narrative, and it's even when certain teams will rise up and fall and whatever, it's just the narrative is that they are what they are. Ohio State's never no one's going to look at Ohio State and say man, they lost a lot, and redshirt freshman quarterback and new coordinators and pretty much new lines on both sides of the ball. And usually you would see the more even-headed here say they've recruited very well, but there's a lot of unknowns, and that might not bode well for them. They're going to get it the other way. Right. Which in some ways, I think you'd rather have it the way that Michigan is. No one really singing your praises and you do better compared to everyone singing your praises and you do worse. Now, I'm not saying Ohio State's going to do worse. But I'm personally skeptical because they're kind of in the same position as Michigan with better recruits, certainly probably better quarterbacks. But, that's still a lot of question marks. So it can go both ways. Jacob Heminger Jacob, with Coach Soup back in the wide receiver room and McCulley getting awarded the number 1 jersey, do you think that it's an indictment on the rest of the room that a transfer came in and got the number before even taking an actual snap in a winged helmet, or is it a sign that we might have a true all-star level wide receiver this year? I think it's both, to be honest. I don't think they had. There was no one in that room, to me, that I look at and say, that is a typical Michigan caliber from the 90s type, right? Wide receiver. I just don't think that that's it. I do think that it's a little bit of both, right? Because tell me which returning player that wasn't a transfer or a true freshman that you'd look at and say, like, that guy is absolutely just going to blow the doors off of any defense and any defensive back? There's nobody. Like, there's some potential. Samaj and Fred Moore have potential. Kendrick Bell has potential. But, like, no one's really truly scaring, like, you know, the high caliber cornerbacks out there. Not saying that they can't, like, have a good game, but, like, Donaven McCulley actually is that. So it's a little bit of both. PSI side with the second part personally is I think soup in the room means the number was 100% earned and not just handed out. And I do think that is the case. He did have to earn it. K-Lob 711. What's the 1-2 games on the schedule that Michigan is expected to win this fall that you can see them getting tripped up and losing? To me, it's the Washington game. God bless you as well. Washington, USC. Well, Oklahoma, like, no one's thinking that Michigan's going to go into Norman and win it for some reason, but like Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, and Washington are the ones. Those are the only ones really, because I'm not looking at Wisconsin at this juncture or obviously Purdue. I mean, Michigan State could be there, but like, I have to see it before I believe it. I feel like their roster is an absolute disaster at the moment. That's just me. So yeah, it's really those four. But like, I think Washington is certainly up there. Damon Williams is a really good quarterback. I've kind of been talked into feeling like that game might be a little more troublesome than I've kind of been giving it credit for. Mike Matthews at Michigan Mike 7. Which freshman other than Underwood will have the biggest impact this season? Kind of hard for me to say for sure. I'm going to say it's one of the receivers because like that's kind of the only place that they can be, unless it's Andrew Babalola. Like there's one other option, Shamari Earls, because like even though there's some that I think we'll probably see, like I would not be surprised if we see some Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng or Nate Marshall. I don't think they're going to be massive impact players, whereas like Andrew Marsh, Jamar Browder, they have an opportunity to like actually be impact players. And you're starting to see it like with Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, that those types of guys being able to come in and do their thing. I think Marsh might have a little bit more of an edge kind of based off of just some things I've heard. But I think that there's just as high a potential with Browder. So like year one, I think Andrew Marsh probably could be that guy. Adam Kasel at Adam_Kasel. What do you want to hear from players and coaches to address that? What do you want to hear from players and coaches to address that? The biggest questions going into the year: cornerback 2, left tackle, right guard, wide receiver 2 and 3 are sufficiently addressed. I don't think there's anything that I can hear. I think that's kind of like part of my fatigue here. Like, because like we just have to see it at this point. Cornerback 2 is not really that much of a concern. Like Zeke Berry, Jair Hill, I'm fine with that. It's the guys behind them. Left tackle, right guard, I feel like those will be figured out. Wide receivers 2 and 3, I think you also know who those. I mean, I don't want to say you know. Like I think slots between Samaj and Anthony Simpson, and then I think Fred Moore is probably a lock for the outside. So I don't think there's anything that they're going to be able to say that's going to. In general, like we kind of know all the storylines about this team at this point. We know where they are. We kind of have seen it, like it's kind of more of like, and on top of it, like they've lied to us before, right? Oh, this quarterback room and wide receiver room, this offense might be more explosive than even the last several years, like, so I just want to hear that it's like consistent and functional. Like, that's all it needs to be, is consistent and functional. And then I feel like, all right. So I don't know that there's anything that I can hear from the coaches in particular. Players, you just want to hear them saying stuff that is congruent with, the trajectory you hope they get to. Edwin Simmons, remember I put out the call on Friday for this. I should have said it wasn't going to be a Friday show. I knew at the time that I put out the call I wasn't going to have a show that day. Happy Friday, my brother in Christ. Well, happy Wednesday to you. Great co-host with Jack. Thank you very much. Please tell me why they have us losing to Oklahoma. Name cachet, SEC team. It's Oklahoma, right? Like, people have kind of memory hold that Michigan won the national championship a couple of years ago. To the Buckeyes that are watching or listening to this and you want to scream cheating, and that's why, because it wasn't a legitimate championship. Just, understand that that's not how everyone's thinking nationally. That's just you guys and Michigan State fans. But it really is just the name cachet. SEC, they're kind of will Oklahoma into something to some degree. Why is Nebraska so tough, who wasn't over 500 last year, nor Oklahoma? I mean, they finished over 500, 7-6. Because at least, like, Nebraska's on the climb. Oklahoma went out and got John Materian as offensive coordinator, but, like, what teams did they play? They beat Washington. How good was Washington? So, I don't know. I think those are tough games. I'm not saying they're not tough games. Those are talented rosters, right? Where these aren't Central Michigan, and both are on the road. One will be without Sharon. So they are talented. They are difficult. And Michigan wasn't exactly blowing the doors off of most teams, but they'd finish strong. So I think it's possible, but I think it's that they, lose either of those games, both of those games, whatever. But I think it's not necessarily probable, but we'll see. Clark at Blue for Life 8, do you think Coach Newsom is on the hot seat if it's another lackluster year from the O-line? Absolutely. I have nothing to add to that. Yeah, absolutely. Nunya Biz at U of M fan _for life. Understand that 8-5 isn't great. Thoughts on Wink being left off of this, which was the Andy Staples, Ari Wasserman top 10 defensive coordinators list. Considering the way things clearly improved towards the end of the year, I think it's silly that he wasn't on there, because they finished as the number 10 defense nationally. Especially when you figure, like, it took him time to figure it out, and then he figured it out. He held the national champion to 10 points at home, and then then held Alabama, which had a very explosive offense, and held Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams to next to nothing. So yeah, I think it's silly. I think it's very silly. I think it's either they're overestimating the importance of Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, and Will Johnson. Because, like, the Alabama showed you, like, yeah, they're important, but, like, not the reason why our defense can play. Like, again, it's people not understanding the blips on the radar that happened last year, right? That's it. They're blips. They're lapses. What question do you wish everyone would stop asking on here? Weirdly, it didn't happen this week. If Bryce has been named the starter, is Bryce going to start? Is Bryce going to start? Like, that type of thing. Like, I think really it's just something that, like, I can't fault people for not, like, paying super close attention, but, like, I think the thing is not necessarily that. The questions that I wish people would stop asking are the things that I've said over and over again, that almost, like, every single show, like, you ask a question and it's pretty clear you don't listen to the show. So why are you asking a question in hopes to be featured on the show? Because you're asking something that I answer, like, all the time on the show. I think that would be kind of the thing. The Rican Raider at Hamstand 87. Morning, sir. Hope that you and Zuri are well. We're doing good. I don't know what she's doing, but she's not in here, weirdly. Predict the starting tight end, stats, yards, and touchdowns. Oh, man, I have no idea. I'll say 40 catches, 450 yards, 6 touchdowns. Marlon Klein. I think that's fair. That's what I'll go with. All right, we've got plenty more left. We're already at what our normal show max is, but we've got probably more. We're still going to kind of rapid it so this show doesn't end up being an hour and a half. But we're going to get to those here in just a moment. But before we do, time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, there's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I just think about, like, I was having a bad round. It was back when I was in league, and that wasn't unusual. I had bad rounds all the time, and it was Moose Ridge, not an easy course. But I stayed focused and had the energy to sink, like, I don't know, it was like a 50-foot putt. That was a game changer. I finished out stronger because I kept that focus and I kept that optimism, and I knew I could do it. And it wasn't just a flat surface either. It was pretty amazing. So golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors. Of course, the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. So if you go to Go to blue? What? If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off of your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription offers. All right. We've got so many more. So many more. On page 5 of 9. So this is going to go for a minute, but we missed a show yesterday, so that we're just going to go along to honor all you, for you, the people. Jeremy Bird at JBird1000 on Crane a couple weeks back. You mentioned the question mark on the defense maybe being in the secondary. Is that based on the stats of the safeties, the eye test, or just the fact the safety room is just a general unknown? Safety room is not a general unknown. I feel very confident about the safeties. I'm talking about the cornerbacks. I'm talking about the cornerback depth. And it's based off the conversations I've had. That's what it is. Follow-up, do you think the safeties at, say, Ohio State will be a problem? Why or why not? Well, yeah, they've got Caleb Downs. So I don't know how to answer it anymore. Mama Wolverine Ed at Bartho 81735. Realistically, will Bryce Underwood be the man for Michigan this year? Yes. It's, I don't know, it's pretty clear. James Fife at Fife Avon 3. Why is your name Hole? Okay, well, let me explain a couple things here about so when a man and a woman, they get together, right? So okay, you know about the birds and the bees. My family hails originally from Norway and Germany on my white side of the family. Black side of my family, last name is Kathy, but I was given my maternal last name. So my great-great-grandfather, Hans Hole, emigrated from Norway first in Montana, I think he just settled in Montana. And then his son, Alton, he moved to Michigan and looked for work and all of that, and worked his way up at Ford Motor Company. And he had a son, Marvin, and Marvin was my mother's father, and then I came along. So that's why my name's Hole, is because that's the lineage. And Hole being a Norwegian name, it's pronounced Hulla in Norway. So I'm mostly Norwegian and Nigerian, just if you're curious. So there you go. Brad G at Brad Go Blue 85, over under 2 weeks until the supposed hammer drops. I'm gonna push about 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm gonna say about 2 weeks. Dominic Smith at Dominic12383. When do you think Bryce Underwood will win the Heisman this year? Or should we lower expectations and see him win it next year? Listen, here's the thing. He might not ever win the Heisman. I know that's his goal. Trevor Lawrence didn't win the Heisman Trophy, right? You can be an elite of the elite quarterbacks. You can have consistently elite years, but that doesn't mean you're going to win the Heisman. I understand that's the goal. And everything. Michigan's got to get more wide receivers, I think, too. Or the ones they have to really step up too. And they got to pass the ball more, because if they play it like JJ McCarthy and he throws for about 3,000 yards in a season, no, I don't think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. So, I do think you should lower your expectations in terms of that, personally. Scott at Scott Sandusky 2. When we look back on the season, will you think Bryce's development was stunted more by the O-line or by him being a freshman? It depends on how things go. You can't really predict that, right? Could be the O-line, could be a freshman, could be the wide receivers not, really helping him out. I look at the spring game. It wasn't the offensive line. It wasn't Bryce being a freshman. To me, it was the wide receivers not helping him out. He put it mostly where it was supposed to go. And they should have come down with a lot more. There's at least 7 or 8. Instead of it being 12 for 26, it should have been more 19 for 26. And then you'd be looking and be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good stat line against the Michigan defense. Kyle Rapley at Kyle_Rapley. Do you think we'll see tangible results of more self-scouting of his coaching from last year to this year, i.e. clock management and weird challenges? Yes, I do. I think I think I have more faith in him about that kind of stuff. But yes. And I think like some of the weird challenges, like, yeah, like the one, I think it was, what is it, Indiana game? I remember there was one that was just like, what are you doing, man? And he said, like, afterwards, like, I did that for the guys, like, and I actually kind of buy that. Like, I kind of think that's like what the team actually weirdly needed in that time, was to feel like I'm gonna use this challenge. We're gonna take some time to like settle down while they're going through this, and I have your back, because I think, some of those guys are like, oh, this happened, and even if upstairs they didn't. So I do think though, like, you'll see less of that type of stuff. You would hope. Michael Ringle at Georgia underscore Stang. I wish you and Steve Dace would do more shows together. Talk about two great minds that balance each other. You are overly optimistic and he's overly pessimistic. My two favorite podcasts, but he gets the edge because he has the best intro. Thank you. I want to say I'm overly optimistic. I'm maybe sometimes in fall game, but right now it's funny because I think they'll be like 10-2 going into the season with a possibility of being better or worse. Right now I'm kind of like, whatever, I don't care anymore. I think it's a little different because I think I buy too much into what the guys say in press conferences. And he's not at press conferences. And he is generally pessimistic about these things. Pro 1209, how would you rank the defense to other Big Ten schools? Or he says big schools. I'm going to guess you mean Big Ten. I mean, I think that it's the best defense in the Big Ten. And maybe that is my over-optimism, but at the same time, like, we saw what they did in the season. It's going to be most of those same guys. Like, very few subtractions, a lot of additions. I think that they're in a good spot. And part of it is having had some of the conversations I had and everything. But here's the thing: is I don't really know the others' rosters as well. Like once they start playing games, I'll start to kind of get a better idea. But I think Michigan is at worst a top 3 defense in the Big Ten, and probably not 2 or 3. Let me put it that way. But everything has to also come together too. Chris Palmer at Red Leader 101529. Can Michigan realistically win the national championship this year? Realistically, no. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. It's not plausible. Let me put it that way. So realistically, no. It would take a lot of things to go like incredibly right. I don't know that there's any teams out there that I'm looking at either, though, that I'm like, yeah, that's just, there's no Georgia 2021s. There's no Michigan 2023s. I don't know that Penn State is that. I don't think that, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson could maybe be that. Texas could be that. I don't think Ohio State is that right now. Ohio State has the potential, but like, we're talking about potential energy, not kinetic energy at this point. Justin Schramm at Justin Schramm, MI. How early can Andrew Marsh become a starting wide receiver? I'll give him 5 games. He could be that by 5 games, maybe. How early can Shamar Earls become a starting cornerback? That's going to take an injury. Same thing as Will Johnson, right? It took an injury. So, if an injury happens, basically. Will Jacob Oden see playing time this year? See, we don't talk enough about Jacob Oden. I'm going to go yes, but very sparingly, because I just think there's just so much depth. But we'll see. We'll see. He might be a guy to ask about when we get Lamar. Steal this M at Busser Buzz. Will the O-line be better this year? I would think / hope so. I mean, they did lose Miles Hinton, but they feel like they've got guys and coaching and all that. Tyree Hamlin at Tyree Ham. How big of an impact will Sharon Moore suspension have on the games he's out? I think he does enough delegating now that everything will be fine without him. But you never know. You never know. They won the games without Jim Harbaugh. I think that, when you got Biff Poggi, you've got a veteran defensive group, you've got an offensive coordinator who's been a head coach. I think that's a lot of maturity in the coaching ranks that will help. So it's hard to tell. Robert James at G-Cord Rob 12. Realistic ceiling and floor predictions for Underwood with player comps. I mean, that's a lot. That's like a whole segment, maybe, if not show. I don't know. Floor? I mean, ceiling is best ever. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I mean, he's a consensus number one dude, or not consensus because I think rivals had him at like 7, but like when you're ranked that high in a good quarterback class, you can be the best ever. That's the ceiling. You can be the best ever. There is no comp. The floor, I don't know the last time you saw a guy like that flame out. So like I'll say like maybe a guy that kind of slightly struggles, but like then gets better, like a Cade Klubnik. Not the same guy. I mean, the closest player comp to Bryce's game is Trevor Lawrence. He's the same style of player as Trevor Lawrence. So, but, you know, it's going to depend on offensive line, wide receiver, running game, all that stuff. Play calling to get the most out of him. Athir Cotter, all right, my brother, it's been a long time since I've been on the show, so let me ask you the question. What do I expect for my team offensive this year, especially the quarterback position? Thank you. Expect that it's going to get better. Expect that it's going to be, you know, the passing game will be a lot more functional. I think you should expect it to look like 2021, but without like the platoons. And like it's, you know, you're going to see more downfield throwing. You're going to see them try to run the ball up the middle a lot, but like at the same time, like you're going to see a little bit more inventive play calling, inventive route concepts, stuff like that. Jonathan Petzold at J_Petzold. What is the protocol when you see someone else in Michigan gear and you yell "Go Blue" and they just give you the Gen Z stare? I had this experience recently and it was disturbing. I think you just move on. Back when before I was in the media and would say "Go Blue" to people, you'd get that. You just have to be like, all right. Sometimes you catch people off guard though, right? People aren't expecting. They don't even remember they're wearing a Michigan hat. It's kind of like when I'm wearing my Jesus is King hat or Jesus Saves hat and someone comes up to me and, you know, at the end of the day while I'm taking Zuri for a walk and they're like, yes, he is. And I'm like, what? You know, I don't remember I'm even wearing the hat. So, yeah. Michigan primetime at U of M primetime. How many points per game will our offense need to make the playoffs this season? That is highly dependent on multiple things, right? Because, like, it took them 13 points to beat Ohio State on the road last year. So how good is the defense? You can't just say like, yeah, they're going to need 24. I think generally you're going to have to average more like, you know, 24, 27. I don't think they face many super high powered offenses, but like if the defense is keeping everybody to like 13 points, then really they just need 14, you know, they just need to average 14. But if like the defense is giving up 21 points a game, then they need 20, you know, average 22. So like Michigan's, keep in mind that's like they're going to do whatever it takes to win a game. And sometimes that means in game, they might change strategy. You know, it's not about like, well, this is our game. We're just going to keep doing it. It might be like, okay, we got to pass to win this game or we got to run to win this game. A la Penn State 2023. Jacob Wolverton at J Wolver10. I know it's the first week, but any early fall camp news on who is showing out? Not really. But like there's really not much to expect coming out of week 1, right? Like they got into pads and you know, over the weekend, like, you know, not really. I've always kind of maintained like back more so when I did like reach out to sources for fall camp, which I just generally don't do anymore. I just kind of wait till game week. But like I've learned like there's no point in really trying to find out who's standing out now because it just doesn't matter. They could, you know, it's just too early. They're like an install, right? Let's see, where are we at? Oh, I meant to put you up in the in segment 2, so my bad. Zichi Jones at @who_Zach Jones. What staff member are you most excited to hear from, ask questions to during camp? Probably Lamar Morgan. Like honestly, it was Wink and Chip, and we've already had them. The problem is they like at least they gave it to us a couple days after they started camp, but like they had been giving us the coordinators before camp last couple of years, before spring ball, but like it's really those guys, but they, you know, it's like, hey, what's going on with this? Who's this guy? What's happening? Well, it's too early to say. Okay, great. So then it would be Lamar Morgan would probably be it, and Ron Bellamy. Those would be the two. Today I think we get Lou Esposito and Grant Newsome, I think. I don't remember. Thomas Ringwald at Ringwald_Thomas. Offensive line receivers, quarterback, defensive backs. Okay, cool. Thank you. Justin Rambron at J Rambron. Do you know how the Ellison NIL effort is set up? Is it a yearly payment, more like a fund, where we use the fund's yearly profit as NIL? Heard he gifted Oracle stocks to us to set up a fund. Wondering if that's really true. I have no idea, to be honest. It's me, Kennedy. What's up with the deep V's recently, showing off the chesticles? I've always dressed that way just because you don't necessarily see it. But I think what's actually odd is how much y'all tend to care about my sartorial choices. Okay. AJ Cooks for you. Is McCulley the alpha they say he is? Does this change your outcome prediction of any game? We still have to see it. Like, I know, like, a lot of times y'all want predictions and things of that nature. Like, we really truly have to see it. Like, I'm not taking a lot of their word on things. Like, do I believe that Donaven McCulley really is that alpha guy? Yes, I do. I've had enough conversations. But, like, is the play calling smart? Does it utilize him enough? Is the offensive line good enough? Can Bryce get it to him? Like, do we see some similar early jitters the way that I feel like maybe we saw with Bryce in the spring game? You know, that type of thing. So, like, but, like, will it change the outcome of any game? I don't know. But, like, all of those things have to work in conjunction. And I don't think Michigan is necessarily going to technically be the team where it's like that wide receiver is going to make that play that's going to make the game. Just because of the style of play, the complementary football. Mish Lazarus at Lazarus Mish, hearing a lot about the transfers, Samaj Morgan and Fred Moore. I'm interested in your thoughts of the likelihood of guys like Channing Goodwin or Amarian Stewart starting by the end of the year. How much will it matter who the other two starters are other than McCulley? Well, it's going to matter a lot because McCulley's going to also start drawing, I think, a lot of help from the secondary, opposing secondary. So I do think it's going to matter. But I think I don't think that those two sophomores are going to be starting by the end of the year. Like, I think it's more, I mean, it's possible, but like, they're also going to be in rotation. I mean, at least Goodwin for sure will be. But like, to me, it's like, again, it's more of like Samaj versus Anthony Simpson, and then a rotation with like Fred Moore, Channing Goodwin. Goodwin could also maybe be an inside guy. Kendrick Bell, Peyton O'Leary, Andrew Marsh, and but like starting, and in a way it doesn't matter because you're probably going to continue to see rotations. The Brad F.K. Hauser starting OL. I think this is probably what I was talking about earlier, because it's like, how many times have I said I think it's going to be Link Elhadi, Crippen, Afobe, or Hatar, Sprague. So that's a question we seem to get every week for some reason. Horizon League champs. I'm not trying to be mean to you, Brad, but like we do get, that is a question that gets asked every single week, every single one, and has been since the end of last season. I would bet almost every single mailbag has that question, and we've talked about it in other shows. J Money Sniper 17. What position is Rod Moore slotting in after the injury? Free safety, same place. What do those insiders say about Rod Moore? I mean, he's mostly healthy. Again, it's like he's got to get through camp and then, get back into game mode, right? Like, he wasn't fully there in 2023 when he was coming back from injury. So we'll just have to see how that goes. Wolverine Warrior at Wolverine Champ 1. Can we get a Jack Tuttle Michigan football mailbag? I don't think that I would be able to produce that very easily. And I think the show would be about 2 hours long. So I'm going to say no. I'm just going to be the parent and say no. David Ross at David Ux. Just got a Michigan email, so there it is. David Ux 1014. Why do you think the national media seems to perennially believe that Michigan can never get better? Is it Michigan fatigue? So there's their shout out. But yes, I mean, I think it's partially that. I just think that, I think in part too, because there was so much time where it's like people wanted to believe Michigan was going to be better than it was going to be in the 2000s and, through even the Rich Rod, the Brady Hoke years. And early Jim Harbaugh, so I just think it kind of gets that fool me once, shame on you type of thing. But I think it's really kind of that. Method Man 8, God be with you, my friend, and with you. And why is there so much disrespect on the Locked On Big Ten show? We need you to be on there more to stick up for our fan base. Like, don't worry what other people's opinions are, right? Like, the problem is like the timing that they record tends to intermix with the schedule. I know during the season I'm probably not going to be on there at all because it's they tend to record exactly when we have a press conference. There will be something new that will hopefully get you fired up. I can't announce it yet, but that should kind of at least aid in your displeasure with that. Like, just, let the hate flow through them, right? Take the hate as respect, as how I would say it. Ramez Herrick, how would you feel now if we have paid up to get a position of need, wide receiver Skylar Bell, and made calls for a sure thing left tackle and a sure thing guard? I don't think the guard's fine. They're fine there. Would you be sitting happy? Why does it seem that Sean's NIL model take desperate need that we put ourselves in as a factor? Would I feel a little bit better if they got Skylar Bell? Yes. Left tackle and guard, I'm fine with. I know others aren't. I'm fine with what they have. And there was no one that they looked at in the portal and said, outside of Skylar Bell, and said, we got to get that guy. That guy's going to be better than what we got. We got to get that guy. So, and they end up getting Anthony Simpson, who's, I think, pretty good. So, yeah. I'm not that concerned with it, right? Because it's one of those things, after talking to some people after following the spring game, the things that other, insidery types were concerned about, they're not, is kind of how it was. All right. We actually have to kind of somewhat hurry this along. I think. Nope, we've only got two more. One more person. Natty J and Nathaniel Joel. Is that what it says? Okay, so writing this together, the font and looking far away. Who's the one player Michigan could least afford to lose to an injury? Bryce Underwood. Who's the most trustworthy source for news on the Michigan sign stealing issue? Justin Spiro, Intrinsic, or Buckeye Scoop? It's a trick question. It's all of the above. That's going to do it for our ultra long mailbag. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back. I don't know. I haven't talked to Jack yet, so I don't know what day we're going to do this week. Could be a weekend day if need be. Yeah, so we'll figure all that out. Just stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon.